Well, welcome everyone. My name is Brett Deshevsky. I'm the founder of an organization in New York called Creator Economy NYC. Do we have any New York folks here today? Woo! All right, amazing. We travel in packs. I said I'm trading pizza for barbecue this whole week, so we're still staying unhealthy. Very excited to be here. We have an amazing panel focused on a super exciting topic in the creator economy, this element of B2B creators. And we have such a stellar group of panelists here who bring very diverse perspectives from all these key areas in the creator economy, whether it's from the marketing side with AJ, and I'll let them introduce themselves as well. Chris, who's a creator himself, and Olivia, who works at Teachable, one of the platforms. All right, Teachable. Let's give a round of applause for Teachable. Very nice. And so, yeah, we're going to be diving into all of that, and hopefully you walk away with one, just understanding what it means to be a B2B creator. Maybe you currently are that, and also if you're a marketer or just in the industry, you're feeling excited about what's ahead. But before I pass it off to our panelists to introduce themselves, I do just want to get a poll of the room. So raise your hand if you consider yourself to be a content creator. Okay, wow, very exciting. Raise your hand if you consider yourself to be a marketer. Oh my God, okay. Oh. Raise your hand if you consider yourself to be like a founder in the space. All right, and raise your hand if you're just happy to be here. All hands, okay, very exciting. All right, well, I'll stop talking, and I'm gonna pass it off to AJ to introduce himself, and then we'll go down the line, and then we'll kick it off with the first question.
Awesome, well, thank you, Brett. First off, how crazy, we're in a room, it's literally overflowing. We're here to talk about B2B. Like, that's pretty crazy, right? Not B2C, B2B. I'm so happy to be here. My name is AJ Eckstein. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Creator Match. We match brands with LinkedIn creators, have both an agency and a software company, have worked with creators like the Bretts of the world and brands like the Teachables and Olivias of the world. So happy to be here.
Round of applause for AJ.
Hi everybody, my name is Chris Doe. I'm a loud introvert. In a former life, I was a graphic designer. Somewhere along the way, I decided to make YouTube content almost against my will. The decision to do so changed the entire trajectory of my life and my career. I'm about 10 years deep into this game, and I'm loving every minute of it.
All right. Welcome, Chris.
Hi everyone, my name is Olivia Owens and I lead creator partnerships at Teachable. Teachable is a platform where seasoned creators are building their legacy through education. So you're able to create high quality online courses, membership, digital downloads to our platform, and I get the privilege of working with people like Chris to share their knowledge and monetize and build businesses.
Amazing. Welcome to all of our panelists. So we keep saying this word B2B, B2B creator, right? There's a lot of buzzwords. South by Southwest is full of buzzwords. And by the way, this is like ADHD talking. South by Southwest has nothing to do with Southwest Airlines, which is something I've come to learn. Anyway, it's just very random. So I want to hear from each of you when we are going to be talking about B2B creator. What do we mean by that? And I want to hear each of your perspectives, and hopefully we're all aligned so this conversation flows very nicely, very simply. So AJ, what is a B2B creator?
So I think it's anybody who has an audience of professionals. And I think a B2B creator can also target consumers. They can target businesses. So anybody who's targeting professionals. But the difference is that professional could either be buying on behalf of themselves as a consumer or behalf of their brand as a company, right? So at Creator Match, we do not just B2B campaigns, we also do B2C campaigns. So we coined this new acronym, I know you guys love acronyms, B2P, business to professional. So any company trying to target professionals, I'd argue there's no better platform really than LinkedIn because professionals live on LinkedIn and we target B2P. So anybody, whether you want to call it a business creator, B2B, who has an audience of professionals.
Amazing. How many people here create content on LinkedIn? Raise your hand. All right, unbelievable. How many people are like considering it? All right. At the end, I hope the whole room's hands are going to go up. Chris, you're a creator yourself. What does this terminology even mean?
First, my mind's blown that this is not related to Southwest Airlines.
It's a distraction.
I don't get into all the terminology. I like AJ's definition, so I'm going to yield the rest of my time to Olivia.
Fair. I would say very similar definition as AJ. When we think about it at Teachable, when it comes to monetizing your knowledge through educational products, you can sell courses to corporations. You can license your course, or they may want to buy their course for the marketers on their team to level up their skills, or you could sell directly to that marketer that's following you on LinkedIn. So the ability to speak to both sides of the coin.
Super interesting. Are we feeling aligned on what B2B creator means? Yes or no? Okay, good. Thumbs up. We love it. So again, why are we even here talking about this topic? What trends have we been seeing over the past couple of years since even like the word creator economy has become actually like an industry standard term that brings us here? So AJ, curious from your perspective, what are we seeing? What shifts are happening that brings us to even have this stage?
So I think that B2B creators are like the black sheep in the creator economy, especially LinkedIn as a platform. LinkedIn is not known as a platform for influencer marketing, right? So you have this community of creators. I myself actually started as a LinkedIn creator, started growing an audience, and realized that there's a ton of other creators like me with massive audiences, like 500,000 followers, executives, CEOs, founders, and have never made $1 on the platform. Imagine if that was on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, they'd be rolling in cash, right? So you have this community of amazing creators who actually have a higher value audience than someone who's just maybe selling, let's say, makeup, which could be great, but you're not selling makeup on LinkedIn, let's say. Or maybe you are, it could be an interesting niche, right? So I think what we're seeing here is that there's a ton of pain. There's a ton of supply. The demand is what we're looking for, right? And the demand comes from companies willing to test new channels like the Teachables and Olivias of the world and realize that professionals could be creators too. And I think it's so important to note that the average creator on LinkedIn never started creating content to make $1 on the platform, right? They did it because they were someone who had a CPA and they love accounting and they're an accountant by trade and they just start creating content about, hey guys, it's tax season and you gotta file your taxes, right? Or hey, I'm speaking at a panel, let me talk about the day in the life, or whatever it was. But since there's no monetization possibility, right, you didn't start by wanting to make $1. What we're seeing now is the ability to unlock monetization as a creator and being able to partner with brands, but it's a very different type of campaign. So I think from an opportunity standpoint, the ability to monetize as a business creator has never been greater, both on the brand side, looking to do a new channel that your competitors aren't doing yet, so the opportunity to stand out is incredible, but also on the creator side, right, it's so rare to be a B2B creator, so you can really grow exponentially right now.
I love that explanation. What types of partnerships are you seeing? Like, what's an example so that people can get an understanding in their head?
So we do the more typical B2B partnerships for sure. Anything that's trying to target other professionals, decision makers, right? Where you are not looking for a mass awareness campaign, but more so a very niche audience selling to other brands. But also we've done some B2C campaigns, right? We're selling mattresses right now on LinkedIn, right? We had our head of creator marketing, Tara, in the front row here. We're selling mattresses. We're selling Stanley cups on LinkedIn, right? Professionals still have to drink water and sleep, right? They still also have to buy software, right? People don't realize the professionals, like all of us here, are people too, right? But we're just buying in a different habit. So we're doing really everything across the board. I think one of the most fun campaigns we did was the Notion Faces campaign, where it was targeting both B2B and B2C, again, going after professionals. And really, as long as there's a professional tie-in, you can think of something creative on LinkedIn.
Super interesting. We love, yes, make sure you sleep and make sure you drink water. They're very essential.
We don't do a lot of it, but we still buy it.
Very essential. Chris, you've been in this industry for quite some time. I'm not going to age you, all right? But you've been in it for some time. You've seen this evolution. You've seen this evolution. And now, like, we're talking about this, like, again, you don't do labels and all that, but, like, we're here talking about this business to business, business to professional content. What have you been seeing from a boots on the ground standpoint?
I'll just say whatever.
And you can't pass it off to Olivia.
I won't this time, I promise. I'll just say what you're saying. In other words, I'm the oldest person up here. I'm 53 years old, so I will tell you the perspective of having made content for 10 years.
By the way, he's going to do a skincare brand deal with AJ. So.
I see a lot of white people out here, so I'll just say it. Asian don't raisin. That's just what it is. All right, so I've seen something really cool happen. In 2014, when my former business partner, Jose, asked me to make YouTube content, I was like, why would I do that? I'm a professional. Only amateurs create content on YouTube. And in our space of design, you see a lot of charismatic young people, probably in their bedroom or garage or wherever they are. They make content and they barely know what they're doing, but they're playing in this new exciting space. And I didn't want to be associated with that because I'm a professional. But despite my protests, Jose dragged me into that world. I started making content, and I learned to love it. And it was really cool and refreshing because in the sea of same, you get to be different. So as a person who has a real business, who's doing things actively, making content, all of a sudden it hit different. And at first, there's an expression about this. They ignore you, they hate you, and then they, whatever, I don't know the rest of the expression. But I remember several industry peers, other owners of firms were really mad at me because I was telling creative people how to go get more money. And it was impacting them. And I didn't know this until some other people told me, those 4 people back there, they don't like you at all. And I said, what's the beef? And the beef was because you're making it harder for them to run their business. My only response was, pay people fairly and you won't have that problem. So, okay, and so now we're on this arc, and what we're seeing is very professional people, people with master's degrees, PhD, with multi-million-dollar businesses, realizing this is an untapped opportunity for them to develop thought leadership, to build community, just to be seen amongst their peers, and it's been an incredible journey. The problem now, it's both good and bad, is that there are more professional, more qualified people entering this space. So the day of you being the lone wolf out there making content in the sea of same, those days are fast disappearing. I'm not saying it's over, but this is to encourage you, if you've been thinking about it, stop thinking about it and just do it.
We love that. Very exciting. Olivia, at Teachable, you also are boots on the ground. You talk to thousands of creators in various different parts of their creator journey. And Teachable kind of thrives on this element of a B2B knowledge creator, again, with the terminology. But what are you seeing as well? I know you guys just launched a report, actually, which I think is, if you scan this QR code, you can get access to the report. But what perhaps was in that kind of was like jarring in terms of like, oh, wow, like we're at a big inflection point. This is why we're here on this stage.
Yeah, so we recently surveyed over 1,200 creators and definitely saw some interesting things around the B2B creator cohort. Half reported experiencing more predictable income. And when you think about this space, it's really hard to go full-time as a creator when you're trying to deal with the algorithm or you're trying to chase your next brand deal. So the idea of having some level of sustainability in this space is really interesting coming out of this cohort. They're also more likely to charge $500 and more for their products and services, so they're able to hit those higher price points because, again, who they're selling to, it's either corporations or it's professionals who can get that written off by their company on their behalf. And then they also reported being twice more likely to be making $10,000 plus a month. And I think what's interesting there is going back to being able to charge more money, have more sustainability. These creators have been able to make that full-time leap. They've been able to build larger businesses by diversifying their revenue streams, whether that's selling courses, whether that's membership, whether that's coaching, and they're able to do that off of the back of their authority. And I think that's what's so interesting about LinkedIn is it's created a discovery platform for creators who are building audiences purely off of their authority, and that authority naturally translates to education. So I think that's the really fun, exciting piece for Teachable here is coaching creators on all of the content you're creating that can easily be packaged into a course, a digital download, something to help you bring your audience off of LinkedIn, because still it's just like the other platforms, you don't own your audience there. So whether that's launching your newsletter or whether that's putting out email templates for people who are curious how you're doing your outreach, you're able to engage them. And then I also think it's a really fun opportunity to go deeper with your audience, right? Like you can only reach a certain level of depth through posting. So being able to go deeper, whether that's in a course, a newsletter, so on, is really exciting.
I love that. So you talk about these creators that are making a ton of money. And by the way, just to get a vibe check in the audience, how many people like have consumed content or do so regularly from a B2B creator? Show of hands. All right, amazing. So clearly they're impacting people, touching people. These results are really exciting to hear. Are these people that are making like the $10,000? Are they like have millions of followers?
No, I think that's the other really fun thing about this. Obviously, the conversation about 1,000 true fans has been happening for a little while now, but I think more and more creators are starting to see, like, if I have 40,000 followers on LinkedIn, Brandon Smithrick is a creator, and he recently launched a newsletter. Off of his first newsletter launch, he has 750 subscribers to that newsletter. If he gets 10% of those people to buy a course from him, he has a business that he can really run away with. So it's not about having the largest following in the room, and I think that's what's really exciting. The barrier to entry is much lower as well. I think on the other platforms, you have to whip out that camera and start talking to camera. On LinkedIn, it's text, right? Like the barrier to entry is also lower, which I think is awesome.
Chris, any thoughts on that?
Is this panel being sponsored by LinkedIn? Because am I the only one not getting a check here? What's going on? Brett, level with me. Shouldn't LinkedIn be sponsoring this?
Next year, maybe we'll get
LinkedIn, are you in the room? Okay, I'm just checking here.
But so you're not creating as perhaps much on LinkedIn or making a ton of money from that route, but you've made a ton of money from the other platforms through your business. I'm curious though your thoughts on this element of follower count, this idea of like attention versus intention. Like you can have 1,000, key audience members, and boom, like you're doing this for your living.
We have to kind of define where the money comes from because it's a little bit different depending on the platform. Because when you said, oh, you have a couple 100,000 followers and you're not making money on Instagram, I'm doing something wrong because I have that, I'm not making that kind of money. And it really depends. So in terms of the platforms paying you, YouTube has paid us the most. And we've been creating content for 10 years, 7.5 years on my own. And I looked at the lifetime revenue. It's about to hit $1 million, which shocked my mind because I didn't even look at that money. I don't even know where that money comes from. I don't know where it goes, but it says it's $1 million.
Just take it.
Yes, but I've gotten my biggest brand deals probably through Instagram. So it's not on platform because the check that Meta sends me every month on Instagram is like 76 cents. I'm exaggerating a little bit by like 1 decimal point, but it's horrible. So really what is the old model is platforms don't pay creators with the exception of YouTube, and probably TikTok. I haven't made money on TikTok. But then we are asked to then go get that money somewhere else. So people like AJ can connect us, or maybe you work with a brand like Teachable. That was the way. But I love LinkedIn. I create content on LinkedIn. I tell everybody that is a professional, do not sleep on this. The algorithm is good. It seems pretty organic. It's not a pay-to-play model. I used to love Facebook. Facebook is like, 3 posts to 1 ad now? It's something horrific. Yep. So I love that. And I love that if you just write, you can have traction, you can build audience, you can build community.
So how else are you monetizing? So we talk about the platforms, but like, what is the breakdown for you as this creator in this realm?
Okay, in order to survive as a creator in this economy, you have a lot of different buckets that collect water. So the more buckets you have out there, the more likely you are going to be able to sustain yourself. So historically speaking, the way we made the most amount of money in full disclosure with Teachable is through courses. The very first course I launched was about 7 years ago. It was teaching people how to design with typography. Started out, I think, at $69. It's since gone up to $250. But that course, we have lifetime sales of over $1 million, which blows my mind. So courses were how we used to make money. We do group coaching. That's another big way of making money. So that's taking people off platform, creating space for them to share and to teach with other people, and designing your own little pocket of the universe. I also do public speaking, so if you build an audience, it's more likely that you're going to get invited to be on stage. I do not delude myself. The reason why I'm up here is probably because of that. So there are a lot of ways to do this, and here's what's really exciting to me. About 10 years ago, I was trying to get someone to publish a book idea I had, and it was like, fill out this application, fill out this form, give us your pitch. And I looked at the form and my eyes glazed over. I'm like, I'm not doing that. Now, because you have an audience, a publisher is ready to sign with me and give me, I think, the most favorable terms they can give someone. So that's very exciting.
That's amazing to hear. Yeah, I just love this conversation because I think a lot of people get scared about creating content because there's a long journey to build in an audience, but it's like, in today's world, in this creator economy, you don't need to wait until you have 10,000 followers to be able to monetize. And AJ, with your agency and what you're seeing with creators, I mean, you do brand deals with creators who sometimes don't have that many followers, but it's perhaps like the fact that they have high engagement and a deep audience. So I'm curious how you think about that element of follower count in this space.
Yeah, so I think it definitely depends on the KPI of the brand. Some brands want to target a CPM and they want mass awareness in a general just marketing industry, right? So you don't have to be super niche. If you have people in the marketing world, that's fantastic. But we have some campaigns that are about cybersecurity, and some niches in the business world are extremely hard to find creators. So it could be a blessing, because if you are a cybersecurity creator and there's 3 of you, you can charge a lot more. It could also be the opposite, because it might be harder to find those partnerships with brands, right? So niche could be good, it could be bad, it depends how you spin it. But I will say that there's a premium for niche creators and niche content, especially if it's high value. So imagine you have 2,000 followers on LinkedIn and you only talk to people in IT and you are a top voice in cybersecurity. That's extremely high value, right? It might not get 1 million impressions, it might get 5,000 impressions, but those 5,000 eyeballs are way higher value. So I think one of the biggest takeaways here for all the creators in the room, even founders, marketers, right? Everyone should be creating content, right? Audience is currency today, right? But I will say that don't be afraid of having to get to the hundreds of thousands and millions, right? I think that's more geared for B2C. I think B2B, you're gonna have fewer people watching, but you go way deeper on what you can do for them, whether it's newsletter, whether it's courses, whether it's paid community, whatever it is. So just start creating. And I always say, like, if you're not creating, you're at a disadvantage, because I think the businesses of tomorrow will be ones who have founders who create content. And how we've been successful as a company is I am just basically the distribution channel of the company, right? So I build Creator Match in public. You guys will all be on LinkedIn probably tomorrow of a nice, beautiful picture of being on stage, talking about what we're doing. But if you're not doing it, then the next company might. So the best day is to start today.
We love that. There's this terminology in the creator space that I've come across where it's like intention versus attention. And it's something at a past company I was at that we talked about a lot, where it's like attention is like great, you have people that are listening to you and all this stuff, but this element of intention is much more valuable because it means that people will actually like take action for you. So when you put a typography course in front of them, they're gonna buy it because it's $200, and even when it's $250, right? And so that comes just through this element of consistency and building trust. And then we talk about audience as currency, but like trust is ultimately what brings it all together and enables you to actually make money from all that, which is super interesting. So I feel like we've talked a lot about these like opportunities in the space, all this exciting stuff happening, but there's certainly like some things to be cautious of and some downsides to it all, some Achilles heel. And so Olivia, I want to bring it back to you. What are some of these like weaknesses? If we're doing like a SWOT analysis, we did strengths, now we're on weaknesses. What are those elements that perhaps B2B creators, this industry, should be made aware of?
Yeah, I think I'm definitely curious Chris's answer, but I think in anything that is a burgeoning kind of cohort, you don't know what you don't know, right? Like right now, a lot of this demand is being driven off of companies being open to leverage influencer marketing as a strategy. How long is that going to last, right? Like, I think you need to diversify is my answer mostly. Like make sure, as Chris said, you have multiple buckets in place. So if one falls, your whole business doesn't crumble. But I think a big threat is just unknown and kind of figuring out building the plane while you're flying it. I think that's entrepreneurship as a whole though. And I also think creators more and more, the road is leading towards entrepreneurship. Though there's a lesser gap between those two things. So think of yourself as a business from the upfront and the risks that are at play there. And also, I don't know, you can think about not jumping 2 feet in. Like you don't have to quit your job tomorrow and do this. This could be a side hustle that you start and eventually go the long run. But for me, it's kind of like the unknown and just making sure you're setting yourself up intentionally and diversifying.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Chris, definitely want to hear from you. What's been going on with you as a creator? You've been, again, in the journey for a little bit now. What weaknesses are perhaps you dealing with, seeing, and managing?
I'm going to speak on one vertical in particular, educators, because that's the area in which I know. And keep in mind the data points are few. This is mostly anecdotal, but more often than not, the anecdotal evidence seems to hold true. I have friends who own their own companies who basically create an information product. They've seen their sales fall through the floor. And we've seen it ourselves. Our sales have been sliding year over year for the last 2 years. It's really challenging. And you're like, what has happened in the last 2 years? There's this weird thing, it's called AI. And the problem is it's the ever evaporating value of information. And I cannot argue it. I'm not here to tell you it's not true. Because you can get a therapist for $29 a month who can also be your personal assistant for that same $29 a month, who can teach you how to cook. And it's bananas, who can write your marketing copy and your landing page and fix all of your writing to make it sound professional. And so that's what we're competing against. So we're not going to get to opportunities. I just want me to rain on everybody's parade.
Yeah, it's all weaknesses.
And so I have a friend who publishes a lot of content on multiple platforms. He was telling me on Skillshare that the sales have dropped 75%. And on Udemy, 50%. Usually when we see a trend moving down, very rarely does it go back up, with the exception of vinyl. But usually it just goes down. It's in a state of free fall. But I have some thoughts and ideas and some solutions, but just be aware, because the more that people are creating this, there's more competition. So everybody in this room potentially is your competitor, depending on what vertical you're in. But the biggest competitor are ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, Perplexity, and everything else that's out there.
So let's talk about that. 'Cause I mean, AI, I'm sure there's so much going on about AI here at this conference. And it's certainly maybe something that holds people back from leaning into the space or feeling that there's a lot of competition. It's not only, like you said, all the other people that are now creating content, but you have the AI that's consumers or the professionals are going to versus maybe an individual. What do you think is the way that creators in this room and the professionals in this room can kind of make themselves future-proofed to an extent? And perhaps what are you currently doing that is a way to navigate that?
We're moving into opportunities?
Let's do opportunities.
Shouldn't AJ speak about weaknesses? No, are you sure?
Yeah.
Doesn't he look like Michael Fassbender, everybody? I'm like, I don't care what Brett's saying, I'm just looking at the man.
There's
like,
a lot of
dude.
ADHD going on in this panel, okay?
All right. Sorry about that.
Ego's up now.
All right, you good?
Okay. But opportunities. I just think it's a natural extension here, and then we'll bring it back to AJ for weaknesses.
Okay, a lot of the opportunities. As you can imagine, my entire livelihood depends on whether or not we figure this out. So I've been grinding on this for 2 years, and lots of mistakes more than successes. But I'll tell you some of the ways I think about this. When the robots come and take your money away or destroy your livelihood, the only way you can defeat the robots is use robots to fight the robots. And this is how the beginning of Skynet is written, but until then, we should enjoy the ride, right? It kind of is. So if somebody says to you, well, why would I take your course? I could just figure this out using GPT. That's cool. We've incorporated an AI concept or an AI accelerator built into this, so we've built the prompt or the bot or the agent for you, so you learn the concepts, and then you can apply it. So the biggest thing is, and I've been thinking about this a lot, AI today can make you almost anything. The question is that thing good? What is the intention behind it? Is it tasteful? Is it minding copyright issues and things like that? So the way I look at it, and this ties into the theme of education, is you as the person who's using a robot need to be like a teacher. You ask it to do something, it does something, and you grade that thing. Is this excellent? Is this fail? Or is this average? And the problem that a lot of people are facing right now, they don't realize this, is they have no idea what they're looking for. So they ask the robot, write me a marketing campaign. They're like, this looks amazing, mostly because it took little work. And so they pump that stuff out there and they're like, why didn't this work? Well, because you as the teacher didn't know what it is you were looking for. Like you can give Mid-Journey to a non-artist suit type, sorry if I offend anybody, and you ask it to make art and you're like, wow, that's lovely, maybe. But if you have the language of art history and culture, and you know the different movements and the lighting styles, you can be very specific about what you want. And when it kicks out something, you can say, well, this is a C, but here's how you make it an A. Do this, this, and that. And so you can do that. So this is how we use the robots. So we know one other thing is we're all tired of learning. We really are. We don't need another course, but what we need is help with implementation. So spend your energies teaching people how to implement. In fact, if you use AI, which is what we're working on, we'll do the implementation for you. So most of my professional coaching business has been built around a scalable model. Giving individual feedback, helping with implementation is very difficult at scale. The reason why education costs so much is because it does not scale. But with AI agents, you can do that for people. You can say, ask them 35 questions, and based on their answers, do this, this, and that. And we work on things like this. So one of the agents that we have is we make we have thousands of videos at this point, is to use a robot to create a workbook from one of our lectures that's like an hour and a half long as a companion piece to the free video that we give, and charge $10 for that to create a micro product. We cannot do that on a human level, but the robots can do it for us. And is it the best book ever? No, but it's worth more than $10. Those are some of the ideas. I have more, but I'll shut up for now.
It's great. I love that. I actually just saw there is a creator who's on Teachable, Dara Denny, who creates content focused for marketers, like ad creatives and things like that. And she literally created her own chatbot that will analyze an ad creative for you, and she will basically be like the responder of it. Well, of course, it's using GPT, but like that's an interesting way that she is incorporating some AI tech. And I love what you said about being the teacher. You also, like, there's a big element of being a tastemaker that's approaching this world where you need to be like, this is the final product, this is what I'm going to post. And that's what separates a great creator from, an okay one, is that they're able to use AI but also know how to work with it to get to their final product. And that's always really interesting. So I was just eager to hear that from an opportunity standpoint. But to bring it back to on a weaknesses front, there are certainly limitations that perhaps you're seeing, AJ, when you're working with LinkedIn creators. And I'm curious, like, what should people in the audience be made aware of that might affect their marketability of maybe being able to land a brand partnership or just like get in front of the right audience?
So I think it's okay for all of us to realize that it's the wild, wild west right now in B2B land, right, as we call it. And rates are all over the place, some super low, some super high. We ask a creator, hey, what's your rate? And they say X $1,000. And it's like, well, where did you come to that number? Oh, well, this massive company just paid me that, so like that's my new rate. But the company maybe has never done anything in B2B marketing, and it's still such a new industry that there's no standardization. So rates are all over the place. And my role on a daily basis, I'm on calls all day, right? I left corporate to say, I'm gonna own my schedule, and now I'm just in calls all day. And when I left, right, I'm just an educator at this point. I'm educating brands on the opportunity to partner with B2B creators. And I'm chatting with B2B creators saying, did you know that you can monetize your audience? And they're like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, you have 500,000 followers. You can make money doing this. Okay, well, how do I do a sponsored post, right? How do I go about this and this in this world? So I think the downside right now is that there's not enough education, right? If you search this even on ChatGPT, Google, there's not enough case studies, right? We're trying to obviously lead the front here, but also the pro of that is that if you are a company leaning into this, the opportunity to stand out is massive, right? And the bar is, I think, much lower right now in B2B. Right? If you think about your favorite marketing campaign, right? So stop for a second, think about your favorite marketing campaign that you've ever seen.
Everyone close their eyes.
Close your eyes for a second. It's probably not a B2B campaign, right? Unless it's our 9 to 5 Quitters Club campaign that we ran with Olivia, of course. But there's such few things happening in this world right now. So the opportunity to stand out on every part of the table is massive. So of course, you look at it as a weakness, we look at it as a strength, and trying to educate all sides to really rise the tide, lift all boats.
I love that. Very well said. And Olivia?
Yeah, really quickly, I wanted to Chris's point share. There has definitely been a change in the tide. I think there was an era where people used to identify as a course creator. Like that was their whole identity as a creator. I don't think that exists today anymore. The way we look at it is that digital products should be a part of your overall ecosystem. It's just a lever that you should pull, and that can be an entry point to going deeper with your audience, and then you can go deeper through community or membership. So I totally agree that there's been a shift in the tide of course creator being the whole identity, and now when we're talking to creators, it's really about how are you making sure that this is a part of the tool stack that you have.
That's great. What other opportunities are you seeing for folks in the room that maybe want to lean into the element of education more so as we head into the rest of this year?
Yeah, I think to the point that we were talking about niches, we just worked with a creator whose niche is in data, and she just released a SQL course because there aren't enough women leading the charge there, and so she was able to garner an audience in that way. And then she's also just like, there's a lot of bad teaching out there. So through the education, I think through the content that you create, people can learn, like, is this somebody that I can learn from? Is this somebody that I can trust? And so we're seeing success in the niches, absolutely. And then also seeing for pairing that newsletter experience with educational products as that next point with your audience. So that's a big opportunity. But yeah, I think more and more creators are starting to bridge that gap between how do I turn my authority into education, and I think that's like the biggest thing holding them back. They're like, what would I teach a course about? Meanwhile, you have 100 pieces of content that could be that for you, so it's just kind of connecting those dots.
Nice.
And
AJ.
one thing to add to that, I know there's a lot of, raise your hand if you're a marketer in the room or on the business side, right? Ton, a majority. And you can also be in multiple, you can be a creator who's a marketer, who's a founder. I think myself, great example, right? So I think a huge opportunity is not just to work with influencers like the Chris's of the world, but that could take time, right? These partnerships, they're usually quite large, they take time. So the buckets that we think about at Creator Match when we're working with a brand is IGC, UGC, EGC, right? So influencer generated content, employee generated, user generated. So if I'm someone running a company, I want to get as much content out there in my ecosystem, right? So if this is my ICP, how could I surround them with billboards of content? Because especially in B2B, these deal cycles take long. They could take months, they could take years, right? It could be a 6-figure contract. It's not like you're selling, one $20 thing on TikTok shop. Like, these things can take a long time. So to get them and push them along that deal cycle, you need more content, more trust, authenticity, transparency, and oftentimes it can come inbound, right? I think outbound, I'm not saying it's dead, but today and age, it's coming from someone commenting on one of your social posts, that leading to then you sending them a warm DM, and then leading to a call, and then nothing happens, but then they see Chris talking about a course he made on Teachable, and then, oh wait, that's super interesting, I'm not gonna buy anything yet, and then they go to an event with Brett, with Teachable, okay, now I'm gonna make that decision, right? So how can you push your ICP down this deal cycle, whether it's with your employees, influencers, or users?
That's great.
How much time do we have left?
We're at
25
time?
minutes. 25 minutes, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
Great. All right, I have my stopwatch running. You made me think it was inaccurate. We're gonna open it up for Q&A for sure. So make sure you have, your thoughts in your head. I have just to close things out, one or two more questions. I want to close out on threats. I know we talked a lot about AI. What are threats that are happening in this B2B creator space that are not AI related? I want to say are not AI related, and would love to hear each of your standpoints on that for both the creators and the marketers in the room who are in this space or are thinking about leaning more and more into it. If Chris, do you want to kick us off?
I think one of the threats would be to be a single platform creator, because as we saw, and I got a lot of slack on YouTube for this, because somebody had asked me before, like, what do you think about TikTok? I'm like, well, it's not an American company. I don't really know what's going to happen there. And they were just dogpiling on me. And then administration says, we don't trust TikTok. And everybody who built their livelihoods on that was freaking the F out. So I think it's good for you to be a multi-platform creator. But I believe the biggest threat is this, and you're not going to like my answer. The biggest threat is you not doing it, period. That's it. The opportunity exists for a period of time, then it's over. So don't be one of the laggards who see an opportunity and then don't take it. Now, I know there were a lot of polling about who's in the room, but I just want to know, how many of you are either part-time or full-time educators? Can you raise your hand? Okay, not so many. There's way more marketers than there are educators in the room. And that's the problem with society. I'm just kidding. And then they all unfollowed me. I'm like, great. But I wanted to say this because Olivia was talking about thought leaders learning how to be better educators. I identify with the educators in the room. I think you already have the gift, and you've been putting your 10,000 freaking hours developing a craft. And that's why when you see somebody who has a gift for teaching, they pop, either in words or on screen or something, because they've done this so many times, they know what works. But the reason why educators still are late to the game is because they're resistant to new technologies and new ideas. So let's just get off that and Don't be your own worst enemy is what I'm saying.
I love that. There's a saying I have with Creator Economy NYC, and part of my French, it's called fuck it, create it. And it just is the mindset of like, you just got to start putting it out there. And so like when you leave this panel, don't go and have a whole plan in terms of what should I create? Here's my 6-month plan. No, just start posting. And I think the best thing you do is share your perspective on like LinkedIn or something about what you learned here at South by and how it pertains to your specific industry or the people that are in your industry. I mean, your coworkers, whoever it might be. I think is a really great approach. But that's, yeah.
Can I get back in on that?
Please.
For those of, okay, how many of you are creating content on a semi-consistent basis? Well, that's great. Okay, but that's not half the room though, right? So I've been thinking about this. There's a lot of different ways to create content. I want to just say something so if you leave South by Southwest, like after this, you have some work to do. There's something for you to grab hold of instead of being just purely inspired. The way I look at this, a traditional broadcast team in sports, they usually have 3 people. It's a 3-person broadcast team. There's usually the analyst who does the play-by-play. They're the storyteller. They're the ones who breathe life into what it is you're seeing. If you don't know this, turn the volume off, and then it becomes really boring. Number 2 is they usually have the former champion or the current champion of the world. They can bring a perspective that is world-class. They don't say much, but what they say carries a lot because we know they talk the talk, they walk the walk. And the last one is usually what is referred to as the color commentator, somebody who's probably got an atypical background in comedy or something like that. They bring a lot of humor and fun. So your core expertise is the base of what it is you're going to do. You can pick one of these 3 to use as the way to create content. So for example, like say you love comic books. You can critique movies that are built around comic books. So you're analyzing, you're telling the history, you're telling us about the Easter eggs. Yep. Or if you're a former comic book artist, you can say, well, back when I was at Marvel or DC, this is what we would do, and we would never say that. And that's pretty cool. We see things like real lawyer responds to, real architect critiques architecture. You see what I'm saying? Because you're at the very top. And the color commentator, this one is used a lot by amateurs, but I think experts need to do this. Do you see those reaction videos? They're probably one of the most popular formats that exists on any social platform. What they do is they take a hit, some viral video, and they just smile or laugh or give an outrageous response to that. And those are really fun to watch. And I think the reason why is because when we're in a live venue, we can see how we all react. But when you watch a funny clip, you're like laughing by yourself at the airport. So when you see someone responding a way another human would respond, it amplifies the emotional experience because there's like the mirror neurons or whatever's happening. There's something really cool. So think about that. Pick one of the 3. The storyteller, which is the analyst, the world-class person. Very few people can be world-class, like best in the world. And the person who brings the personality, the fun.
That's amazing. Always talked about how Tony Romo is such a great football analyst because like he was on the field, right? And so he's able to kind of blend all 3 together. And if you have that, I mean, then you're ultimately an all-star with it. Threats, Olivia, if there's any additional points to add.
I agree with Chris about standing on the sideline and not getting in the game. I think that it's really, really easy. I think it's brand deals and influencer marketing are really attractive because you're dealing with a brand, your money's coming from the brand. The idea of asking your audience for money can be uncomfortable, right? And I think we have moved beyond the time where audiences feel some type of way about you making money as a creator. I actually think now they're much more excited to play a part in a creator's success. So the opportunity, so often, if they're buying a product from you, it's because like they want to see you win. They want to invest in you. And so I think if you don't get involved with that, if you don't engage your audience in that way, you're leaving a ton of money on the table, but also value add driven to your audience as well. So I would double down on what Chris said about standing on the sideline.
And I'll add to that. So I worked in management consulting in probably one of the most corporate jobs you can have for 3 years, right? Our company had 750,000 employees. Like, think about that for a second. Not 750, which already is a lot. 750,000. That's like a country, literally a country, right? As corporate as it comes. And one of the things I did not love about management consulting was it was all about, let me help build this game plan, this strategy, and let me walk the client to the mountain and say, good luck climbing it, right? So I think where we're at today is so much is about the strategy and so much about the thinking and the brainstorming, but it really comes down to the few that actually climb the mountain. And everyone's so obsessed with the summit and getting to 1 million, users or followers or dollars, whatever it is, but it's literally just baby steps, right? So when you walk out of here, don't just say, oh, I'm gonna start creating more. Like, actually give a tangible aspect to that. What does that actually mean? Is that one post? Okay, is it a video? How often are you posting? You have to just start, because I think with the age with AI, right, it's never been easier to create content, but the difference is it's never been easier to stand above all this AI-generated content because it doesn't have your voice, right? It doesn't have your transparency. And the last thing I'll say as well is the biggest threat, there's a lot of marketers here. If I was in your shoes looking up at us sitting here, the biggest threat is another company creating content and we're not creating content. So I think it's hard, right? I see a lot of head nods, right? It's hard to get yourself excited to be a creator, but there's nothing scarier than knowing that you're not doing the best that you can do on behalf of your company and your employees. So when I have days where I'm not inspired and I'm tired and I flew literally last night to be here from a conference in LA and I need to make a piece of content, it's not for me, it's for our team, our company. So have that in the back of your mind. If you are a founder, a marketer, someone who runs a team, it's for them, not always for you.
Well, that's where my questions will end. Let's give a round of applause for our panel. Great job. Amazing answers. I'm feeling inspired. I'm hyped up. Of course, you can follow us all here. We do some time for Q&A. And so we only have a couple more minutes, but if you line up here, there is a microphone. Just state your name, who you voted for. Okay. And
that's obvious. Come on.
My name is Matt Garrison. I voted for the right person. Unfortunately, we're in a problematic time, but that's a whole nother conversation. I run Dash Studio. We're a high-end animation video production agency out of North Carolina. And it's been interesting to me over the last 10 years. This has been really insightful. Luckily for me, I've been around 10 years to see when you put one video up on YouTube, it would be successful. To now we're in this rise of UGC content, the less polished is the better. You're trying to put on all these different channels. What do you feel like is next? We've been kind of in the one content, now there's tons of content. We talked a little bit about education content kind of sliding. What do you all see as kind of the next big thing on content creation?
Shoot. I'm not very good at predicting the future despite the name of the brand. If I did, I wouldn't be here. I would just putting my money in stocks. But I think what's happening is if we follow the trend line, if you were to take the hypothesis to be true, that more professional people are getting in it, they have way more resources than the kids doing it in their bedrooms. And so that's what we're seeing. We're seeing people like the Hermosi spending $60,000, $70,000 a month on their media team. That's not for media buy, that's for organic content. So the bar is getting raised, and I think higher quality cameras, better production, better lighting. Maybe we're going to have a small team, kind of like the writer's room, generating the content. So it's going to look a little less amateurish, I think. That's my best guess.
I want to add, I think there's an element also of in real life content creation. Like I have been hosting events for the past few years now, and it's been very fruitful from a brand partnership and community building standpoint. And I think that we've been such in a URL world that we're now actually seeing elements back to IRL. And so I think me predicting the future and where we're headed, there is this URL to IRL and vice versa moment. And so if you can build that intention in real life and get people to show up in a room like this, that's some of your strongest points, and you don't need 1 million followers because all these people could potentially become your customer of what it is that you're building.
I just remember one more thing.
Yeah.
I was at a creators table and we were talking about something about the return to long form content. Long form gets its due again after the last couple of years of super short form content. Short form content is good for just getting eyeballs and growth, but really bad for building a relationship with somebody. And so they're saying, this is from a YouTube executive who said something like, more than 50% of the people who are consuming the content are consuming it in the living room. So it's a lean back, not lean in way of consuming content. So think about how they're there. And we have seen this in our own numbers. It's really weird. Our long form, hour plus content outperforms the 10-minute cut downs. Wow. And then if you see some people who literally would post a video all day long, kids are watching it with them and just going along for the journey.
That's really interesting. Almost wanting that more deeper connection, almost I think what you were talking about when you watch a reaction video, right? It's kind of being the presence. Awesome. Thank you all so much.
Great question.
Thank you for your vote.
Hi, my name is Ulrike. I'm a foreign correspondent, and my niche is media innovation in the US, selling these insights to German news media publishers. And I'm building a business on the side where I'm cutting out the middlemen, selling the insights directly to the clients. And my question is, how much should I take what you're saying with a grain of salt when it comes to foreign language markets? Because it's easy to get frustrated when you read how-tos and how to get 1,000 newsletter subscribers in 2 weeks or so. And then I think, yeah, that's the English language market. How much of this is actually applicable to other markets, smaller ones?
I would say pretty applicable. Interestingly enough, Teachable was acquired by a Brazil-based company called Hotmart, and they have been able to build such a massive empire around educational products in that market, across markets, LATAM, South America, and so I think it's definitely applicable. Teachable also has a global audience of people selling on our platform. I think the grain of salt is around like rapid growth, quick money, anything that is positioned as a cheat code. I think that's the grain of salt piece, but I think you can absolutely draw the engagement, build the community. If you want to cut out that middleman and go direct to the people that you want to talk to, I think that's possible, and I think there's a desire for that. We're also seeing the trend of independent media companies starting their own newsletters, and like now it's about that writer of that newsletter versus the overarching parent company or umbrella. So I think there's a desire to get direct to the person, and I think people are hungry for information and want to get access to it. And like we were talking about, your unique perspective, your unique expertise being in this space is exactly what people are looking for.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, I'm Tash. I have a two-ish part question. For all the solopreneurs in the room, what would you recommend for prioritizing between different platforms? Because I'm a writer and an author, so I spend like my entire day writing the best thing that I can, and then it's like 10 p.m. on a Friday, and I'm like, oh shit, I have to do social. And that's it's a lot of time consuming in addition to everything else that I'm trying to do, which is make the best and write the best stuff that I can. And also, I keep getting shadow banned, so I'd love to know more about, like, also from Chris, like, how do you deal with shadow banning or like haters and, you know, just the internet being a complete wild, wild west place as you were talking about. So thanks for answering my 3 questions.
So I feel you on how hard it is being a founder and then also being like, oh, I also have to create content, right? It's incredibly challenging. And the first tip is if you could batch content, so like on a Sunday, think about what you're planning for the week. All of my content that I make, and not saying that I have 1 billion followers, but of our very high intent audience, it's documenting over creating, right? Documenting over creating. So this week will be about how I'm sitting here, right? And I've tried applying for 2 years, I got rejected twice, and now on the 3rd year, right, they say through Alexa Charm, here we are, talking about that. Talking about key points, documenting over creating. It's way easier, at least in my brain, to think about just what we did versus what we should be doing. So I think that also helps in terms of time. And then I think the last thing as well, as you're going down this route of just creating content, is where does your audience live, right? Everyone's gonna say be everywhere, be YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest is popping off, whatever it is, but where does your audience live, and double down on that, right? I always give you the example, right? Mr. Beast, he didn't say I wanna be the biggest creator in the world, I wanna be the biggest YouTuber in the world. Once he hit critical mass, then he became the biggest creator on all their platforms, right? So for you, where does your audience live? And just focus on that. For me, as we are very LinkedIn first at Creator Match, it makes sense for me to put 100% of my time into the platform where our audience lives.
Did you say you're a writer?
Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. It's the best superpower to have. Really, I mean, I think because of AI and what's happening right now, writers are finally getting their due, for sure. So if you write, do you publish what you write?
Yes, I do.
Freaking fantastic. So you publish on LinkedIn?
LinkedIn sometimes and Substack.
Okay, that's another platform. I don't use it, so I can only speak about LinkedIn. If you continue to post consistently on LinkedIn, you'll start to see some posts do better than others. You've seen that?
Yeah.
So when you see one that takes off, ask yourself, why did the audience like that, and can I do more like it?
Yeah.
And see if you can replicate that, because it's teaching you something. It's like we get to do R&D in public for free. So when you have a piece of content that really sings, then this is the easiest thing to do. Put it on a teleprompter and just read it to people.
Yeah.
Easiest thing to do. So you can take the 5 articles or posts that you've made that have popped, and then just read it to camera and send it off to someone to edit and add some motion graphics or something. Now you have a second form of piece of content. And if that goes really well, take that and turn it into a workshop or a keynote or a TED Talk, and then do that. And then whatever else you want to do with it. Okay?
Thanks. I know that other people have questions, but hopefully this is also relevant, which is that, could you guys also speak quickly to video on LinkedIn? Because I've tried to post video and it hasn't been performing as well. And then that's it.
Wait, what was that?
Video on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn.
Video's popping off on LinkedIn. I talked to somebody at LinkedIn the other day, and she said that it was like their fastest adopted feature ever. So it's not going away.
I will also add to that when the platform is prioritizing something, okay, think of it like an ambulance driving through traffic and gridlock. You as the creator or the founder want to get behind that ambulance and follow them to beat all the other traffic sitting there doing text only, text plus image. So if the platform is making it very clear that when they're doing product updates, they're only updating analytics for video or anything for video, I would go all in. I wouldn't only post video, but video is high priority right now, right? Of the billion users, 1% actually create content. Of that, probably a fraction of the 1% create video because it's harder to do. But you also build the most trust while seeing someone actually in a video versus image.
Thank you.
Nice. Great question.
Hello, thank you for sharing your time and experience with us, first of all. And I just wanted to kind of ask, at what point, since everyone has to start from someplace, what point did you feel your efforts being less cold call and spammy to people actually trusting you and seeing you as a leader? Because I feel like that's the turning point when people will be motivated to continue with this, and everything else is an uphill battle, right?
Was the question, when
Like,
did you stop
maybe-
cold calling, or
Well-
when did they stop cold calling you as a creator?
Well, I mean, anytime you put anything out on LinkedIn, it's like everyone's
Yeah.
coming back at you. But no, I just meant like, maybe you can share like when it clicked, right? Like when it went from, hey, this is new and not everyone really trusts me or likes me, to now everyone listens to what I'm saying and the brands are coming in, yeah.
The biggest lesson I've learned from creating content on YouTube for 10 years is this. In the beginning, what we did was we created content to sell our product. We created content to sell our product. Here's the weird thing. We didn't sell a product and we did not build an audience. When we decided we're just going to teach without any call to action or any product, that's when things started to work. So my advice for all of you, if possible, is turn off the marketer hat. I'm sorry, everybody, turn that off and put it on silent mode, do not disturb mode for as long as you can. Because when you create content purely out of your generosity to give to others with zero expectations, something magical happens. You are a different person. You notice how whenever you meet somebody and they have an agenda and you feel that agenda, it makes you suspicious of that person. We rarely trust and buy from people that we do not, we rarely buy or trust people that have a hidden agenda. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, some of you think you're really clever at hiding the agenda. You're not. We can tell it's a marketing play. And so if you can just delay that, it's going to be a beautiful thing for as long as humanly possible. So my business model is to be able to play this game for as long as possible without going bankrupt.
Okay,
And I think one more thing to add, I don't think there's ever a finish line.
Right.
Like I know how hard that is to hear, but there's never a finish line. And the day you stop could be the day that you lose relevancy and then someone else stays top of mind. So I know we have a lot of marketers, you said turn something off as a marketer. I think when you're creating content, you have to turn off attribution at times. Because I have a little, whenever a call gets booked for us with a brand at Creator Match, I have a little thing on the bottom that said, how'd you hear about us? 9 out of 10 times, it's LinkedIn content, right? We're not gonna get, hey, can you hyperlink the post that led you to this? But what if it was 5 posts and I'm mentioned in a newsletter and now speaking here, but I would never have spoken here if it wasn't for the content that I would mention in the newsletter. So again, the more you can do to stay top of mind, especially in this B2B world that we're in, the only more helpful it will be for you. And even if you have a sales team, right, their conversion rate will be higher because their audience knows about you, or at least saw the founder building content. So I would say trying to stay top of mind and just creating more.
Okay. Thank you.
I think maybe we can maybe squeeze in the two if we'll keep it punchy. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. First of all, I'm Leopoldo, founder of a Brazilian ad agency called Allset, in-house specialists. And I was wondering here in a very personal journey, how do you guys feel about having algorithms as maybe your new bosses? And how can that relate to other work experiences as entrepreneur that we have like clients and everyone around, suppliers and team, or employees that you have your like regular bosses and your struggles? I'd love to hear a little bit about if you feel like working 24/7 and different demands from LinkedIn or from TikTok and so on. How do you guys cope with that?
Well, I report to Mark Zuckerberg, so he's my boss. I was going to say, my point to that, I think the point of this whole conversation today is like, kind of to get off the platforms, that you use it as this top of funnel element, but what you really want as the way to be sustainable is that you are off platform, that perhaps you have a course or a community or you have a newsletter list. And I would say a huge takeaway here is that emails and owning your audience is one of the most important things that you can do as a creator. And find ways to just capture leads of people. Because when those algorithm changes happens, at least you have your audience in your email. No one can take that away from you. So I think that's a really important element to think about, is that the goal should actually be to get off the platforms. You're kind of just using it as a top of funnel mechanism. I don't know if there's any points to add there.
I would just say at the end of the day, whether there's this algorithm change or not, the goal is to keep people on platform. Right? So how can you get people to share the post with somebody? How can you get people to comment, to engage? Just continue to do more and more of that. And again, that ambulance analogy, follow them to what they're prioritizing, right? So if you're always, every post is pushing them off, probably don't do it for every post. But how can you keep people on, get people engaged, create conversation? And that's what I would focus on versus chasing this is hot, but now this is hot. Like just focus on getting the best content to your audience and making them feel like, wow, he's an expert. And when ready, I'm going to reach out to this person for XYZ thing.
Right.
I also think it's just like one of those necessary evils, right? Like can validate how frustrating that can be. But I think to the point everybody's making here, it's like recognizing that as kind of a necessary evil, but what is the piece that you're building for yourself in a way where you know when you're engaging with your community, they're going to show up, they're going to gauge, you're going to get that validation for the work that you're putting in, making sure that the necessary evil isn't the only thing you have, you've created something else for yourself.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Last but not least.
Appreciate you fitting me in. I'm a solopreneur. I have a small company that works with a very difficult audience of real estate agents. There's about 20,000 that have used, about 1,500 that pay for it. And they, funnily enough, use me to make marketing content, which I do not do myself. And it's something I'm aware I need to do. It's something I think a lot about. It's something I've stressed about a lot. And I'm not really sure how to start. And I'm kind of curious, if you were someone that had a product that has got good traction, it's got a lot of advocates, what would you tell me to do?
I think it goes back to the point of, instead of sitting there on a Sunday and saying, I need 20 pieces of content for this week, if I were to just ask you as a friend, we're at a coffee shop, tell me about a week in the life of you as a founder, right? Hopefully the coffee shop stays open late because there's a lot to say. Right? Hopefully there's a lot of coffee. So that's what I would start with. And every day, just take some notes on what happened that day, the good, the bad, the ugly, the wins, the failures. You're on a house tour, you're on an apartment tour, a client reached out and you realize everyone's asking you the same exact question. There's the content right there. So I would focus on just document over create. And maybe I wouldn't start with video. I think video is the hardest piece of content to make. Start with a text-only post. Right? You could literally be in an Uber heading back home right now, writing that text-only post, and then go text plus image, and then maybe text plus carousel, and then go into video. It's a bit harder to do. So I would say just document over create and just start, because it will only help you in your business.
I think another angle is like, what are the most common questions you get in the world that you're operating in? I think so often when we're in the midst of our stuff, like we undervalue learnings or insights because it's just like, everybody knows this. Not true. Like you are so deep in your own world that there's a wealth of knowledge underneath what you're operating, whether that's inside your same lane or whether you could zoom out a little bit and figure out how to apply to a more broad audience. There's a ton of expertise and education. And I think to Chris's point, like if we all step into kind of like the educator hat, it opens up our ability to create and add value.
What kind of industry are you in again?
I make marketing materials for real estate agents.
You make marketing materials for real estate agents?
Yeah.
So you can do it for them, but you can't do it for you?
You know, it's that's the paradox I live in. Yeah, yeah.
Because you get paid to do one, and you don't get paid to do the
no,
other?
No, it's more like the materials they want are actually quite simple. Like a lot of it is they want writing, they want very primitive edits to imagery.
Okay.
It's not the type of stuff that shows my work well, but it is their work. And I can't, unfortunately, use their work as reference for
I'll make this real quick.
reasons.
I get the T symbol, like we're out of time here. Yeah. I noticed something. Did you notice that TikTok is helping people sell products on TikTok? That they pay for shipping and they're really promoting it heavily. The play that TikTok's making is they want to compete against Amazon. And that's a play that not a lot of people are seeing. And what's happening here is because when we know about a product or service, we're more likely to buy it, especially if it's from a person we trust. That's a real interesting play. So if you think about like really boring businesses like washing cars or cleaning, there are whole channels and people dedicated just how you clean stuff. A person giving tips from a point of view of a dry cleaner. There's a woman, her name is Madame Sweat, and she's a personal hygiene expert, and she talks about like body odor down there. It's super niche, and if you're into that, it's so awesome and fascinating to see. And you know those people who take a toothbrush and like clean a car? I don't know why. I'm not going to wash my car, but I just like watching those videos. So you could take a piece of copy that's for a marketing video and said, here's what we're working with, and here's how you make this better. Here's how we edited it before, here's how we edit it now. Just do really niche, one lesson at a time, video content. I think you're going to find something fun to do.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Well, thank you, everybody, for sticking around.